Hello, welcome to another cloud computing class. Today we'll set up our first CI/CD pipeline using Google Cloud Platform, GitHub Actions, as we'll see in this seminar, and also we'll use Node.js. That will be our code that will eventually deploy and run inside a container on our virtual machine. Right, so let's start, and since we have a lot of steps to control and 3 different systems to interact with, we'll see how we go step by step. Okay, so the first thing, it will be to go to my GitHub and I will create a new key. So I will use this key whenever I need to interact with GitHub in order to deploy code. We'll have everything in your private repos, so it's a good practice to have a key to access your repos. So go to the developer settings, personal access token, and what I will do is I will generate a new key. I will call it lab7 Terraform key. I will give it access for 30 days in my repo, and also I need access to my GitHub, as you can see here, actions. The GitHub actions are actually the events that will trigger the deployment of my services whenever I push code in a GitHub repo. Okay, so let's go here and generate a token. All right, this is my token. Just copy this, and what I have here, I have a text editor to save the text. It's important for me, right? So this GitHub token, probably I will need to use it again and again and again. So let's have it here, and we'll see how we can actually use it. So just put it here somewhere to have it for later. Okay, so let me go here in my homepage of my GitHub and just bring back my tutorial, and I will stop here by just controlling the one repo that is already created for you guys. So it's this one. So let me just copy and open here to see this repo. So in this repo, what we have, this is a public repository where we have everything we need, all the tools we need in order to deploy our code. We will cover everything in class, and we'll see all the different files of Terraform here and what is represented. But for the moment, we just need to make a copy of this in a private repo and reuse it for our own purposes. So let's go into my Google Cloud and activate here your Cloud Shell. So the Cloud Shell, I will just increase the size here. Okay, so the Cloud Shell is actually a small, let's say, virtual environment that we can use, provided by Google, and it's actually in your Google Cloud Platform. Every time you need to do things like, cloning repos and pushing code, stuff like that, you can do it here easily. You don't have to create a virtual machine for this. You can run it directly from here. So just click here and wait for a minute or so for this to be available. So let me just bring here my tutorial, and my first step here, it will be to clone this repo that has all the Terraform code for me. All right, so I'm here, just maybe increase the size a little bit, and you can see here I'm just in a user as user 1. That's my user. So let's clone our repo. Okay, my repo is here. You can see here I have this cc Terraform, so cd cc Terraform. Let's enter. Let's see what we have here. Okay, we have all these different files. That's fine. All right, so I downloaded this repo to me. All right, the next step, I will go to my GitHub and I will create a new repo, and I will add everything in this private repo because I will have important things here like keys to access the GCP platform. It's good to have a private repo instead of having a public repo. So to do this, just create a new repo here. Okay, so let's call this lab7 Terraform. And yeah, we can copy it like that, lab7 Terraform. That's fine. And this will be a private repo. So make sure you select private repo. Okay, create the repository. Okay, that's fine. That's my repository. It's empty yet, but hopefully I will fill it up with the new data from the other repo, right? For the repo that we just cloned. So copy this, right? Copy this. Let's add it here. This is a private repo. I might need to do some small configuration here. So let me do it now to finish with that. So copy your token, add your username. In my case, it's TeliosOT, and colon actually, and then your token, and then add, and that should be fine. So make sure you create a correct GitHub URL here, right? So again, we use the URL and then we just add our username, colon, the token at your particular address. We did these things a couple of weeks before, so you should be able to do this. All right, let's go back to my virtual machine here, to my Cloud Shell. All right, let me clear the screen here and let me bring in front of me the tutorial. Okay, so I have here my Terraform, and what I will do now is I will push this to my private repo. How to do that? Okay, I say git push. I will say here mirror because I want to create a new fresh repo out of this, and I will paste the URL that I just created. Okay, so I created this URL and I will do that here. Just paste it and press enter. All right, hopefully now you will have everything you need in this particular repo. We just created a private repo. Okay, yeah, it's here. I can see it, right? Just refresh your page here and I have everything I need. So I moved everything from my my public repo to a private repo, and now I can use this one for my deployment. From now on, whenever I want to deploy something, I will use this private repo. Okay, let's continue. Let's go back to my tutorial. So again, we cloned this public repo that has everything we need. We move everything to our private repo. We have it there now, and that's fine. What I will do now, I will just exit this folder. All right, so I'm still in the public repo. You can see here it's called CC Terraform. Okay, clear my screen. And what I will do now, I will go here and I will start with a fresh environment of my private repo. So from now on, I will use only my private repo. Please make sure you don't use the public repo because you will mess around with all the other people's repo, right? Because everybody uses the public repo to extract their code. Okay, how we do that? Right, easily. We go here. We use this URL because we just have it. Okay, this is the URL of my private repo. I will go back to my Cloud Shell and I will say clone this repo. All right, so bring it back here. It's called Lab7 Terraform. Yeah, I can see it here. So cd Lab7 Terraform and ls, and I have everything here. So this is my private repo that I have, and I can start working around. Okay, let's continue. The next step, it will be to run a set of commands to allow us to interact with the Google Cloud, authorize ourselves, create a key for the Google Cloud, and we will use this key in GitHub in order to synchronize GitHub with Google Cloud so they can actually communicate with each other. Every time we push code to the GitHub, GitHub automatically will kick off an action and will deploy this in our virtual machine. We will not do anything, we just press enter and magically our VM will be created. Okay, let's see how we can do this. First of all, we run this command here. All right, this command will allow us to authenticate ourselves and proceed with the deployment. It says here, do you want to continue? I will say yes. Okay, you see this link here, you click on it. Okay, that's my user, that's fine. Allow, okay. And that's the key, right? So I just copy this and go back to my virtual environment. Just paste this here. Just paste it here. Okay, that's it. We actually now authenticated in the Google Cloud Shell. Okay, now the next thing to do is to run a file that is called config.ch. I can see it here, right? So let me clear my screen one more time and let me see. It's called config.ch. Now this file has a set of commands that I will need to run in order to deploy my services. All right, so what I will do? Well, I will first make it runnable because we just downloaded it from the GitHub, right? So to make it runnable, you just run this command, chmod +x, and the file, it's called config.ch. So if you see it now, you can see it changed the color. This means that this is now runnable. So we have to run it. Okay, let's bring back our tutorial. To run this file, you will need to know your project ID. Well, your project ID is this that is inside the parentheses, without the parentheses, okay? So this is your project ID. It's cloud class, but in reality, it's an ID behind this with this -33, etc. in my case. So probably you will have something similar. So how we'll do that? Okay, just to run this, run config.ch, as you see it here, okay? And then you will give as argument here the name of your project ID. Just copy this and paste it here. Alright, so run this command and press enter. Now, what this command will do, first it will ask us to authorize this command. I will say yes. Alright, and it will take a minute. It will create a bucket. A bucket is, imagine, like a small storage space that actually will link to our environment. And whenever we need to store data and the state of the Terraform that we'll discuss in class, it will happen there. Alright, then it will create a service account that is a way for us to authenticate in GitHub as well and to perform every action we need. And then it will enable a set of services. Since we'll run everything remotely, we need to activate this, say to Google Cloud Platform that yes, my code can actually connect and run all these things remotely. I actually activate this. Okay, you can see here there are different things happening. Make sure you don't see an error here. So if you see an error, something went wrong, you might need to rerun this. But since we run everything together, and if you just follow exactly what I did, if you give the correct name, for example, of your project ID, everything should be fine. Okay, so I just run a simple configuration file that does a lot of things, and mostly I will discuss these things in the class. Now let me clear my screen and proceed to the next step. So we just run our configuration file. What we have now here is a key. So this creates an actually key. You can see here I can cut and see this key. All right, this is the key, and I can use this key in order to connect to the GCP and run my commands. So I don't have really to use my username and password. So it's actually a token that I can use here. Now, just see it for the moment. What we need to do is to transform this key, that you can see that it looks like that, with similar to a kind of key value pair format. We need to transform this key to what we call a base64 encoding. To do this, we just have to go to this particular URL here. Let me just go here and just run this one in order to actually transform. Let me agree here. Just go to this URL. Okay. So we'll just have to copy and paste here the key. All right, let me close this, sorry. This key, the whole thing, all right, with the brackets. You can see here, just copy, paste it here. You can see here, and just click on code, nothing else. So this will create a unique token. You see all this thing here? That's my token. Select all this token, okay? Just wait for a second. We'll see how we'll deal with this. Right, so keep it open and let's have it here. Okay, so we just transformed our key to base64 format. That again, it's a different way to represent this because in GitHub, the GitHub needs a 64 format, and actually here we have a different format, as we say this is a key value format. So, what I will do now, let me continue here and we'll see what we'll do with the key. So we create the key, and now it's time for us to connect GitHub with Google Cloud. This key is for Google Cloud. We have to move this key to GitHub, and every time GitHub communicates with Google Cloud, we'll use a particular key. All right, how we do that? Let's go to the GitHub. So go back to your GitHub and go to your private repo. All right, so don't use anymore the public. We are on your own private repo. Go to the settings, and in the settings, somewhere here you will see there is somewhere it says secrets. So click on secrets and click on actions. Again, secrets, actions. Now, to link GitHub with GCP, we need to create a new repository secret. So click here. What I will do now? Well, I will go back here and I will find all these things and I will select everything. Okay, make sure you select everything, all this, copy this, okay, and just add it here as value. And your name, just go back to your tutorial and take the name from here because the name is standard, right? So we cannot use any different name. You have to use the same name. So copy this and put it here. Again, I just moved the key to a base64 encoding, and then I copy and paste here in my actions as a new secret, and the name, it should be this particular that I have here. It's called GCP TFSA creds base64 with underscores. That's all. Add secret. Make sure you copy correctly the key. All right, that's a secret here. If we make a mistake in the key, the GitHub will never be able to connect to GCP. Let's go back. All right, I will not close this window. I just have it here because I don't know if I will need again the key. So let's have it here. Okay, I'm here in my terminal. let's clear the terminal. Let's go back to the tutorial. So we created a key. We eventually link our private repo with GCP using this key. And now I will have to make a small configuration before I start using my repo. So edit this file here. All right, edit this file. You can see it's called workflows main. We need to edit this file using this command, and we will actually clarify here in this file. The only thing we need to change is, I will go down and I will find here my project ID, right? My project ID, remember, is my project ID from this project. Now you have the project ID of the previous public repo. So what you have to do is just let me break this. Let me copy the project ID that I have it here. Okay, so it's a good practice. Take it from before because probably you will use it. Copy this, edit inside, and let's change the project ID here. Okay, so let's remove this and paste the new project ID. So it's a good practice also, guys, to have it here. So you can say here, you know, my project ID is this one. Let's have it here because probably we'll use it many times. Now, the second thing that will change is the bucket name. So it's the line ahead of this. So let's go here and say, what is your bucket name? So your bucket name is always your project ID dash bucket. All right, so just use the same project ID that you have dash bucket. Okay, Control S, Control X. Again, we edit this file that is called the main YAML file. This is a Terraform file for me. The only things that I need to configure is the bucket name. This is a bucket name that I just created in the previous steps. And this is the project ID, and this is unique because it is your own project. So we need to change these things, nothing else. Control S, Control X again. Okay, that's good. Let me go back to my tutorial. So I was able to change these two things. Again, the same project ID for all of your projects, and you can see it here or here in this parenthesis. Now, let me scroll down. Before we start connecting to GitHub, what we will do, we will have to set up here a basic GitHub account, right? To do this, we can run these commands here, and you can just run it here and add your email. In my case, I will say, you know, I'm Stelios OT, and that's my email, all right? And the second thing we have to do is to say who we are in terms of our username, and my username in my name is Stelios OT. You can find this also from your repo. So you go here, you will see this is your username, and probably you should know also your email, all right? So just add these two, and whenever we need to push code in GitHub, the GitHub now will know who we are, okay? That's essential things of GitHub in any case. All right, let's go back to the tutorial. Now, what we will do, we will run these three commands to actually add everything that we created, and hopefully this will create a virtual machine for us. Now what we need to do is just to run these three commands. Let's do it. Let's add everything. Okay, let's commit, and my message here is change workflow because I made some small changes in the workflow. As you can see here in the main, I changed the project ID and the bucket ID. Okay, and finally, I will push in my repo. Okay, so to push in my repo, what I have to do is to find my repo address. And thankfully, I have it here. That's my repo address. So it's a good practice to have it in a small file and copy paste whenever you need. So copy this, go here and say git push to this repo. Again, this is your own private repo. Let's do this. All right. Something happened now. Let's go back to our repo and let's click here on the actions. It says here you just kick off an action, meaning that you created a workflow that will deploy a virtual machine on the cloud. Okay, let's see what we did. Click here on the change workflow, and that's the message of my last commit, and click here on the Terraform. You can see it's already running for around 20 seconds here now. So click on it. So we kick off here a set of actions here, you can see, and these Terraform actions will create a virtual machine for us on GCP using the keys and using the networks we just created with this configuration file. These are pre-configured for you, so I already have everything there, and you can do small configurations there and rerun the workflow, and you can, for example, change the size of the virtual machine or create another private network to open a port, all these things, right? So literally, we just have everything we need here to connect and create a virtual machine. Alright, this will take a minute, and you can see slowly it will build up my virtual machine. It took 1 minute and 1 second. How fast was that, right? Let's go to GCP. Okay, what I did, I just created a virtual machine using code. I didn't do it by hand. Right, here are my two VMs. Somehow I need to refresh this, and I will see my VM. So let me probably change from here and go back. And hopefully I will see here a lab 7 instance. Okay, that's great. I created a virtual machine using code. Great. The only thing I had to do was to make the configurations. From now on, I don't need to do this again. We just set up one time the configurations, and then we run again the workflow. Now, just to see how this works, so I can click here on the SSH, and I can see that my VM, hopefully soon, it will up and running. And that's the first part of the 2 parts that we'll see today. Again, what we did, we took the code from the public repo. We treat this as a seed project, all right? We download this code to our own folder, and then we create a new repo for this. Finally, we did some basic configurations to allow Google Cloud and GitHub to communicate with each other. We don't use the Google Cloud, we use the GitHub in order to push our code there. Pushing the code to GitHub kicks off and starts our new task. The task was to start a new virtual machine. As you can see, my virtual machine is up and running. Okay, that's great. So if I need to create a virtual machine, I just have to run a git push to my repo, and then I will create a virtual machine. Now, I don't really need this window anymore, so I will just close it, and I will proceed with the second part. Now, I created the virtual machine. The question is, how do I add my code inside? How do I start my code? And how do I do it from my computer, so I don't need anymore to do anything else in the Google Cloud? So I don't have to go here, create a Docker file, and then create a container, start the container, match the ports, all these things. It will happen automatically. Alright, let's do this. Let's go to my GitHub. And you can see here, this is the private repo. I have it here. I will need one more repo. And in this repo, I will create my application. Now, again, I have a seed project for you guys to use, so you don't have to do everything again from zero. So let's go to the tutorial. So we finished part 1. Let's start with part 2. Okay, let's start with Visual Studio Code. Now we'll run it locally. So bring up your Visual Studio Code and go here in the terminal, open a new window. Okay, and let me just bring this tutorial. And it says here, okay, let's clone this CC Terraform node that is my seed project again. So let's take this. It's a public project. Okay, I have it here. Let's enter in this folder, cd cc Terraform. Okay, maybe clear my screen. And all right, what I have here, I have a Docker file and some configurations. Okay, so everything it should be there for us to build a node application. Okay, that's fine. Let's go back to the tutorial. It says here, create a new repo and then mirror your copy to your new repo. Yes, now I'm actually in the public repo. We need to move this in a private repo. Let's do it. Go to your GitHub. Let's open a new window here. Let's have this open as well. All right, create a new repo. So this repo was called Lab 7 Terraform, and this one I will call it Lab 7 Terraform Node. And this will be a private repo. This will have my code. The previous repo will have my deployment plan. Whenever I need to create a VM, I'm using the Lab 7 Terraform. Whenever I need to deploy code, I will use the Lab 7 Terraform node. So I have 2 repos here. Let's do this. Let's go here and let's say create repository. Again, this is my new URL. I will just copy from here, go back to my file that I keep my notes, and compose here my new URL. More or less, I have to just copy my username and until here with the @ symbol and add it here. All right, I can use the same key. It's fine. All right, let's copy this now. This is the new URL. Eventually, we need the token, right? In any other case, we'll not be able to connect to GitHub. Let's go back to our Visual Studio Code. Let me increase the size of the window here. And what I will do now? Well, in the tutorial, we say we need to push this to our mirror repository. Let's do it. Git push mirror. And just add here the URL of your new private repo. Press enter. Okay, let's go back to our repo. Let's refresh the page. We should have here our new repo. Perfect. This is what I took from the previous tutorial. Okay, what we do now? Let's go back to my Visual Studio Code. And I can go here and do this. I can just change my folder here, okay? And just go out of this repo. And what I will do, I will download the new repo and I will work directly on the new repo. You always have to remember that you have to go again to your private repo, right? Because if I continue working in this folder, I will be in my public repo, all right? So let's do this. Let's go here and let's say git clone this one, this new repo that we did. Okay, we have it here. Let's enter in this folder, lab 7 Terraform node. All right, let's clear my screen. And I'm now in my private repo. Now, always remember the name. This is the lab 7 Terraform node, and this is my private repo. Okay, it belongs to you, not to me. Okay, this is your own private repo. Okay, what we'll do here now, let's go here and open this folder so we can have it also open. So I think it's this one. Let me see where I put it. I can go here and say pwd. I can see it's users mini. Okay, let me find it. Open and lab 7 Terraform. Okay, that's the one. I found it. You can put it in your desktop so you will not be confused. Okay, like me. All right, this will open a new window. Yes, I trust the authors again one more time. Open a new terminal, and we are now in this repo that we just downloaded, but this is our private repo. Okay, what we are doing here now. Now here I will create a new Node application and I will push it to my repo. After this, GitHub will start a new task on the GitHub Actions to deploy my code, create a container and run it. Okay, let's see how we do this. So let's go here and create our app. Now I will copy the code from here because we created so many hello world programs, so I don't want to do it again. So npm init here. I will start my project, press enter again, and now what I will do, I will install Express because I need Express in any case. Okay, while at the same time I will create a new file here called app.js, and here I will just have to put this code from my tutorial. Okay, or you can create it yourself if you like. Just create a new Express app and I will send a hello world. You can see here the version is 1. Eventually we'll change the version, we'll see how this works. Save this. All right, I have everything here. Let me bring back my tutorial. Before we start pushing, we need to make a small configuration. So you go here in the GitHub, on the main YAML file, or maybe you can actually increase the size of the window. Then you need to change here the new URL from your repo. So go and take it from your file. This is the private repo with the node code. Okay, let's put it here. That's fine. And your project ID, that is your project ID. Well, we have it here. Okay, we copied from before, or we can easily find it in our GCP. Right? We can see here that is. Let me just increase the size of the window. This one. Okay, that's our project ID. All right, let's have it here. So I have here my project ID, and here I have my GitHub URL. Okay, again, this is the URL of your private Node repo. Now save this. I don't need this main YAML anymore. Close it. Go back to the tutorial. So we changed these two configurations and we're ready to go. We need to proceed with the usual steps. Git add. Okay, let's do this. Well, let me clear my screen before we do these things. Let me change the size of the windows here, be a little more easy to follow. So git add everything. Okay, you can find the commands also if you go a little bit behind. Git add everything, git commit with the message adding my app. So I will add my app. Maybe just make it add, should be fine. And then I will have to push now, git push, all right, to my repo. So my repo is the one that I just have here. This is again this repo, the private repo of Node that I use. So just put it here and press enter. Okay, let me go back now to my GitHub, and I am now in the node, right? And I go to actions. Click the actions, and you can see here it says add my app. All right, add my app. Okay, I will click here, and I will see there is an error. What is happening? It says here, Google GitHub Actions auth failed. The authentication failed. Obviously, because we didn't really connect this particular project or repo with Google Cloud. What we have to do is to go to settings, all right, go to here to secrets and to actions, and create a new repository secret. We need to create a new repository secret for every new repo that we create. Go back to the tutorial, find this name. I think it should be somewhere here. It's in the tutorial. I didn't see it and I forgot about it. So copy this. All right. This is the name here. GCP TFSA creds base64 with underscores. And the value, I think I have it here open, right? So I think it should be somewhere here. Yeah, it's here. Okay. Again, select everything. Copy this and just add it here. Add the secret, and that's it. Now you should be able to connect GitHub with GCP, and GitHub will send commands to GCP. Go to actions and just click here on the last one, add my app, okay, and rerun all jobs. So hopefully now it should run and deploy my setup. I can click here and see the steps. What it will happen now? Well, it will connect to my VM, and my VM is this one. If I go back to my Google Cloud platform, this VM that I just created in the previous step, it's called Lab 7 instance. It will add my code, all right, by let's say SSH to my VM, add my code, upload my code from my repo, all right, create a Docker container, and actually create an image first, then the container, and run this at port 80. Okay, so running this, hopefully I should be able to see my application up and running, and I will have my pipeline, and I just created my first CI/CD. Obviously there are so many things here to control and questions, but this is the beginning, right? This is the beginning of a long journey. All right, so I can see here things happening. You might see some failures, but don't worry, if it doesn't stop with a red X, everything works fine. Okay. Okay, so while this is running, I will go back to my VM, okay, and I can see here that I have a public IP. So probably this public IP will represent my application. Let me go back. Okay, it says complete the job, everything is tick. I don't have any error. Okay, let's go here in the GCP, take this, copy this, open a new window, and run it. I can see hello world, yes, right? How amazing is that, right? From my computer to the Google Cloud by running a simple git push into the GitHub. I already did all the work that I needed. So now I'm ready to continue deploying my code. So the question here is now, okay, what we did? What you did is if you go back to your Visual Studio Code, okay, and you have to now to make a change here. Let's say I want to make this version 2, all right, save it. Okay, so I changed my software. How can I push it to the production system very fast? We'll go here, clear your screen, and just run the commands. Add everything, okay, commit, I will say here update my app, okay, and push. End of story. Go back to your GCP VM and wait. After a minute or so, your software will be live. GitHub will deal with these things. So if you go to actions, you will see that there is a new action here. It's called update my app. And then if you click on it, you will see that it will start setting, building and deploying a new container. It will be the new container with the updated software. And actually whenever we push our software, we create a new version of it. So we move from version 1 to version 2 to version 3, etc. So we keep track of the previous as well. Alright, so you will see it will take a minute and hopefully this will be up and running. What it means up and running, that I will go here, I will press an enter, alright, and at some point this will be okay. Let me continue pressing enter here, alright, it's coming, wait for it, okay, continue to deploy, it takes some time always, and hopefully I will see here v2. Yes, I can see v2. How amazing is that? From my computer to deployment only by committing code to the GitHub and just pushing my code to my repo. Obviously, the configuration, it's here in the Docker file, and the Docker file, let me close this. The Docker file is just a Docker file as we did in the previous classes. We just run a node app here. All right. Now, also a good practice is before we start pushing our code to GitHub is to run it locally. We never try it. So if we go here and say node app.js, this will run locally. So if I go here and run it, for example, in localhost 3000, I should see here hello world v2, right? So it's a good practice. Run locally. Whenever you are ready, push your code and run your code on your production environment. So in our case, what we call here v2 environment, lab 7 instance. This is, let's say, you can call it staging or you can call it production environment. If you give this to your clients, it's a production environment. But I can do it fast and efficient from my home. I can just write my code in the Visual Studio Code, push my code into GitHub. Again, just to clarify here, we have two repos. This repo is responsible for creating our network, creating our virtual machine, set up the keys, set up the communication between GitHub and GCP, and a couple of more things such as the bucket as we discussed, that is a storage for us to store data while this is happening. The second is the application itself, that we develop an application. We can continue using this seed project here that I have here on my tutorial, this one that is called CC Terraform Node, and this is from myself. This is a public repo. We move this to a private repo. The moment we have it in the private repo, we start working on it and we can use it directly to deploy our code. The only thing we need to do is to make a small configuration in the YAML file here to change the project ID and to change the GitHub repo URL, and also remember to add the keys in the GitHub as well. All right, that's a good practice as well, because if we don't do this, it will fail. Now we have everything up and running, and what we have is actually 3 or 4 basic things that we did. First, let's go here and say bucket. If you type bucket, you will see the cloud storage. A cloud storage actually is what we call the bucket. So I can actually reduce the size of this. This is the bucket that I created, and again, this is like let's say a Google Drive, all right, or a Dropbox, where our system connects and stores data. Now I don't need it anymore, so I can actually drop it. So I can go here and say delete the bucket. Let's delete the bucket. Okay. After we finish the tutorial, it's a good practice to delete everything, so we don't have to keep it there and we have to pay for this. The second thing that we'll see here is what we call a service account. So just type service accounts, okay, and you will see here the service accounts. The service account is what it creates a key for us in order GitHub and GCP to talk to each other. You will see here there is a service account, all right, and if I just refresh the page here, the one that we have is the one that starts with our project name, that is Cloud Class in my case, right? So you can see it's this one. So go here and delete this one. We don't need it anymore. We just created this one. Okay, delete this one. So we delete also the service account. Finally, we need to delete what we call a VPC. A VPC is a network that we create in order to connect a VM with the outside world. So go here in the VPC networks, and here down, if you just go a little bit down, you can just close this, and you can see here collapse this, and that's our VPC. It's called Lab 7 VPC. Okay, let's delete this as well. Just enter here and delete this. Okay, we can delete the VPC network. All right, so we deleted the account that we created. We deleted the virtual private network. Again, we create virtual private network for one simple reason. We want to control our virtual machine, what ports it should be open, how it will connect to the internet, all this information. So you create your own virtual network. It's a good practice instead of like using the default one. All right, and finally, what we have also is a virtual machine. So go to your compute engine, and you will find here somewhere your running instance. Let's delete this. We don't need it anymore. We finished this tutorial. Okay, so we deleted this. All right, so we deleted everything. And we saw how we can do this directly from our computer. The other thing I can do here as well is that my application now, I have it in the actions here as well. You can see the different actions. I can keep up and updating my app, building my app again and again and again. Having this environment here, I should be able to update my application, develop and deploy as I go. Obviously, there are missing steps here. For example, testing my application as I develop, I test, and then I actually deploy. But in any case, we try to see here the whole process, right, from my computer to the cloud. All right, so that would be all for this session. Make sure you delete everything because this will cost you money. You will let it there running, and continue practicing, continue exploring the Terraform package. We'll discuss more about this in the next class. See you in the next class.